court case, always go to the end, read the decision, and then go back and read the case, and now the case becomes so much clearer that you don't waste your time second-guessing of what they're trying to do and what they're saying.
Well, I didn't understand what he might have done to run afoul of whatever parties, and we had Garfield assassinated not that long before.
Right.
And there's another whole mindset about that as well. We're certainly not looking at lone gunman nuts, although I think that's what they want us to believe, is it not?
Yeah, right.
Well, one of them was a lawyer, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Most
all of them are. Yeah, most all of them are lawyers because every governor except one in North Carolina was a lawyer. And the reason why they want lawyers in here is because of the Bar Association, the middle temples of the Crown.
Mm-hmm.
The Crown is not the king, but the Crown is the banking cartel that owned everything, that owned the Bank of England and everything else like that. In other words, they set up their attorneys, and if you read the book by Charles Warren on the history of the American bar, and in there you can see how when lawyers were so despised that Virginia made it a hanging offense for anybody to practice law because the lawyers totally decimated Virginia. And then after that, they got into good graces right before the Revolutionary War, and that's when Warren gave you the whole history of all the bar from before the war all the way up to 1920.
But, I mean, I'm right in saying one of the two assassins, I mean, we had Guiteau and we had Czolgosz.
Uh-huh.
One of them was a lawyer.
Right.
And that was what? Was it Czolgosz, do you remember? Oh, you saying that Guiteau was too?
I believe it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Livingston, remember when the Batcher cases in 1803, when Jefferson was claiming some of the Batcher cases, the property in Louisiana, and that was the land that was above water sometime and below water the other time. That's why they called it the Batcher cases. And the lawyer that came over that defended him, they lasted until 1830, and the guy died. I mean, they just kept putting lawyer after lawyer after lawyer on it.
Just to go ahead and obfuscate and...
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so McKinley's assassination was
finance-oriented, yes.
Okay. All right.
I didn't go into the nitty-gritties and find everything, all of it.
No, but was this an affront to the Bank of England?
Sure.
Okay. No, because what we've been thinking about, when you think about the common thread through assassinations, one or two things happen, or they might be the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Usually you don't mess with the monetary system.
No.
And secondly, usually you don't mess with the Vatican.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's why the Prussian, the guy in 1917, when he was assassinated because what he did...
Archduke Ferdinand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there. Look how long they carried that. And because he was instrumental in some aspects of the Civil War, because he was fronting the people the money in the South, and he was against the United States for trying to, well, not the United States, but the people in power that wanted to separate and control the South, because the South had 3 times the amount of revenue generated by all their shipping and trading than the northern states did.
Yeah.
And he was definitely with the French banks for the South because they were fronting all the money for the South.
Well, I may have confused the issue. The Archduke gets shot to start World War I.
Right.
Was he? Are you saying he was a personage at the time of the Civil War?
No, his father was.
Oh, his father was. I'm sorry. Okay.
And that's why they wiped out the whole family.
Oh, so
they eliminated the whole family. They didn't stop at just one guy. They went, willy-nilly. And 1917 is when him and his daughters and his son and his wife, they were all killed.
Do you know who wound up just surprising themselves by finding themselves the curator of the pistol that was used to kill the Archduke? Do you know what group has it?
No, I didn't get into
the Jesuits.
Yeah. Yep. Because, like I said, when I read some of the parts on the Rothschild on the book, it goes back into the Jesuits being sent over to the United States, well, to America, and to South America to stop any Republican form of government by being formed.
Right.
And that was their main problem because they didn't like republics. And in fact, what's-name's book on that, which was Emmanuel Josephson, the Federal Reserve Conspiracy and Rockefeller, the Gold Corner, he went back into great detail on this, on the Jesuits and the Vatican, and how they were knocking apart all of the foundations of Republican form of government, and they were told to destroy it.
You have no argument. No argument here. The War Powers Act, going back, was that also, this, you give us a different look at Washington. Some thought he was like the only last best guess, chance we had.
Because, Washington was just as bad, because remember, all the founding farters, I call them farters, I don't call them farters, they just blew ill gas. Anyway,
okay.
Washington, when he came over here, remember, all these people, Franklin, Washington, and all those, they had money. They had land in Europe, the mother country, and they came over here. They didn't like what was going on. They wanted all the benefits, but they didn't want the taxes, so they revolted. Okay? And the king says, hey, we got the best navy in the world. We'll blockade you, and you'll bow down to us. And which they could. We had no navy.
Mm-hmm.
We had no army. They had all the navy, ships, and everything. How else did we get here? So what they did, he gave him an ultimatum. He says, I'll run a blockade on America. You won't get any shipping in or out. And I'll seize all your property over here, and you won't own a squat. And you'll be paupers in your colony over there.
Mm-hmm.
And they kowtowed. Because what happened was, remember, Washington was a real estate tycoon in 1853. And it was the Virginia Land Company that he worked for. And he was selling and making the killing on real estate over here by all the royalty that was coming over here to live and find land and whatnot.
Was it 1753, you said?
1753.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's well known. You can go on and search Washington and what he did on the internet and find a lot of this stuff. It's not just what I found in the library myself. Because the internet came into effect.
Kind of like a version of Century 18 instead of Century 21.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he made a lot of money and everything. So, of course, they kowtowed, and they said, okay, well, we'll set up your British colony. We'll be a subdivision, like Pontiac is a subdivision of GM.
Mm-hmm.
Just GM, that's the King of England. The United States is Pontiac, It's a subdivision of the Crown. And basically that's how it's looked at. And not by the average person today. They think Constitution is so wonderful a job and everything like that. But remember, the Constitution wasn't eliminated, wasn't destroyed. It just changed the venue to military into the War Powers Act. Because when you read the War Powers Acts and you read Whiting on that, which is the top authority, bar none, he came out and said that, the Constitution, it just lays aside its peacetime and goes into the wartime effect. And it's like night and day. But it isn't destroyed. It's just living under different principles based on war powers and based on peacetime.
Do war powers have anything to do with something that seems curious? I mean, you hear about this War of Independence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and not too long after, do you have the military turned upon the citizenry with the Whiskey Rebellion?
Oh, yeah, the Sedition Acts, that's what they did, They turned around, and they wanted to protect the Crown's property and holdings here. And, the people in power write the laws, they write history, they write everything. And what happened was, they, in the Whiskey Rebellion and everything, they didn't want to be taxed. Now, the shoe's on the other foot now, okay? Here you've got Washington and all these people who was against the king for all the stuff that was going on. And now you've got the people, the farmers in the Whiskey Rebellion against Washington. And in other words, Washington and them became England again.
Yep.
So then they said, well, we'll institute the Sedition Acts. And that's what they did. And they did that under the War Powers Act. And that's how they operated the Sedition Act.
All right, the Sedition Act, I think